It was never our intent to comment on the Zimmerman trial, but as we see it now, this is a sociological issue that is worth pointing out. Now that the verdict has been read, there are opinions on both sides. Sociologically, ask yourself a few questions. What if Zimmerman was a white woman? Would you feel the same way about the verdict? If you found the verdict to be correct, your answer would still be yes. If you found the verdict to be incorrect, and you are honest with yourself, you would say no. You would say that the woman had a right to defend herself. What if Zimmerman was a black woman? Would you feel the same way about the verdict? If you found the verdict to be correct, your answer would be yes. If you found the verdict to be incorrect, and you are honest with yourself, you would say no. You would say that the woman had a right to defend herself. Now ask yourself, if Zimmerman was also black, how would you feel about the verdict? If you feel the verdict was correct, you would also feel the same way if the two were both black. If you found the verdict incorrect if Zimmerman was a white, Hispanic, you would now find the verdict correct if both were black. Now ask yourself, what if Zimmerman was black and Martin was white? If you agreed with the original verdict, you would still agree with that verdict. If you disagreed with the original verdict, you would now agree with, and support, self-defense. Why would there be a change in opinions? Because there are two brains at work here. One side uses logic, the other side uses emotion. Therefore, if you take emotion away, or at least redirect that misguided emotion, from those whom disagree with the original verdict, they will then use that same emotion to defend self-defense. This is because emotion clouds reason. What are the travesties in this case? One is that a person died, another is that the prosecutors suppressed exculpatory evidence, another is the race-baiting politics, another is unfair comparisons, all highly emotional issues. Since they are emotional issues, you must always side with logic. What we find to be the biggest and most egregious issue following this trial is the statement made by Benjamin Crump, an attorney for the Martin family. He stated, quote, "Trayvon Martin will forever remain in the annals of history next to Medgar Evers and Emmett Till, as symbols for the fight for equal justice for all. This is the most irresponsible, inconsiderate, inaccurate, unjustified, erroneous comparison that has ever been stated about this case. It is beyond disgusting to invoke Evers and Till into this debate. It is like comparing grounding a child for a week to slavery, and finally, to all the race baiters like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Eric Holder, and Barack Obama. You are the filth of the earth. This is not a civil rights issue. You are concocting a lie that will further divide America for no reason. This was a case about self-defense, not a Martin Luther King Jr. worthy issue. Stop misleading and lying to people." Back to sociology. Sociology is the study of the development, structure, and function of human groups conceived as organized patterns of collective behavior. Who do you idolize? Who is your hero? What do you want to be? All questions asked to children and young adults. Why do some people want to grow up being professional athletes? Why do some people want to be doctors? Why do some people want to be firemen or policemen? Why do some people want to live like a thug or find the gangster life appealing? Early guidance or lack thereof, family, friends, mentors, media, all have influence in guiding the young mind. So, now you have two individuals who have chosen opposite paths. One is a wannabe police officer. One is a gangster thug tough guy. Fast forward to the day of reckoning. You have a person who has taken steps to protect his community by becoming a watchman. You have a 17-year-old man who was innocently walking through a neighborhood where he was not recognized and deemed suspicious. Both are in a neighborhood that has had multiple burglaries and offenses. The initial reaction of the watchman is to alert authorities about suspicious activity. The overzealousness of the watchman causes him to keep a close eye on the type of person that usually perpetrates crime in his neighborhood. The initial reaction of the thug gangsters is to become suspicious and offended that someone is following him. The initial reaction of the thug gangster is that no one will intimidate him. The two cross paths. Now, what is the initial reaction of the wannabe cop neighborhood watchman? It is definitely not physical violence. He would not have called 911 if he wished violence. What is the initial reaction of a gangster thug? Physical violence or verbal confrontation. Rap music, glorified gangster life in movies and video games form these probable first reactions in susceptible individuals. Brainwashing. Ingrained automatic responses. Garbage in, garbage out. Now, go back to the original questions. If the watchman was a, quote, crazy-ass cracker white woman, what would the likely first reaction be from a gangster? It would still be verbal or physical violence, perpetration of his acquired inner hatred. If it was acquired from music, it is in the form of hatred for women, reference to hoes, hatred for police, cop killer rap music, hatred for anything outside the gangster bubble. It creates the organized patterns of the collective behavior around this world. Now run through the list of racial mixtures in the beginning of the video. The natural reaction and response from each side would be the same. One is surveillance. One is violence. Culture dictates the norms. Ask yourself who Trayvon Martin's mother first called when she had not heard from her son. She called juvenile detention first that night. Why? She knows that the gangster culture had corrupted her son. Under the law, no one had done anything wrong until the physical confrontation had begun. It is not illegal for someone to follow another person. It is not illegal to walk through a neighborhood unless posted otherwise. If you are going to blame Zimmerman for not staying in his car and continuing to following the other person, then you must also and equally place blame on Trayvon Martin's culture of mental corruption. Some say, if Zimmerman would have stayed in his car, Trayvon would still be alive. Yes. You must also say, if Trayvon would have left instead of staying to confront the follower, he would still be alive. You must also say, if Trayvon would have calmly asked the person following him why he was doing so, Trayvon would still be alive. You must also say, if Trayvon felt threatened, he could have also called 911 for help. Trayvon is not entirely to blame for not doing any of these things that would have changed the outcome. The sociology and the corrupted culture that he followed is to blame. Zimmerman is also not to be blamed for defending himself. Both made simple mistakes. Both could have diffused the situation. Your disgust and protest should not be with either individual. Your disgust and protest should not be with the jury. Thankfully, they followed the rule of law and not the rule of emotion. Your true outrage should be against glorified cultural corruption. Your outrage should be with media bias and their lies about the case. Outrage that the media tried a case before evidence was presented. Outrage that a media is perversely looking for a white-on-black issue in order to continue to blame America for everything. Outrage that the media doctored photos and edited audio to sway opinions. If you disagree with following the law, then your outrage should be at yourself for blindly following race baiters who play on emotions to promote their disgusting agendas, and for blindly following media bias. Look inward, look at yourself and protest your own biases. Blame corrupted sociology, blame the corrupted development, corrupted structure, and corrupted function of your separatist collective behavior. Use your own brain. Use your own common sense. Protest and do something to stop the decaying fabric of society.